At the end of 2 years from when the Most High shook the earth with the great miracle, involving Abram's going out of the fire and being unharmed, that is in the 52nd year of his life. Behold, King Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne, and the king fell asleep and dreamt that he was standing with his troops and army in a valley opposite the king's furnace. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming forth from the furnace, and he came and stood before the king with his drawn sword, and then sprang to the king with his sword. When the king fled from the man, for he was afraid, and while he was running, the man threw an egg upon the king's head, and the egg became a great river. The king dreamt that all his troops sank in that river and died, and the king took flight with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. The king looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely dresses as the garments of kings, and had the appearance and majesty of kings. While they were running, the river again turned to an egg before the king, and there came forth from the egg a young bird which came before the king, and flew at his head and plucked out the king's thigh. The king was grieved at the sight, and he awoke out of his sleep, and his spirit was agitated, and he felt a great terror. In the morning the king rose from his couch in fear, and he called all the wise men and magicians, and he told his dream to them. And a wise servant of the king, whose name was Anuki, answered the king, saying,
This is nothing else but the evil of Abram and his seed which will spring up against my king in the latter days. Behold, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will war with my king, and they will smite all the king's hosts and his troops. As to what thou hast said concerning 3 men which thou didst see like unto thyself, and which did escape, this means that only thou wilt escape with 3 kings from the kings of the earth who will be with thee in battle. And that which thou saw of the river which turned to an egg as at first, and the young bird plucking out thine eye, this means nothing else but the seed of Abram which will slay the king in latter days. This is my king's dream, and this is its interpretation, and the dream is true, and the interpretation which thy servant has given thee is right.
We are still in Genesis chapter 12 verse 28. A lot took place in this chapter, and it is clearly shown in Jasher chapter 12 verse 45 to 56. This dream came from the Most High, showing us in the future, a shadow of things to come, when the Most High will use Abram's seed to bring about his righteousness upon the earth. This dream was shown to Nimrod exactly 2 years after the Most High had compassion over Abram, saving him from the fiery furnace that burned for 3 days straight. Remember, the Most High doesn't need us. He loves us and his mercy endures forever, but we need the Most High. We are nothing without him.
Now therefore, my king, surely you know that it is now 52 years since your sages saw this at the birth of Abram, and if my king will allow Abram to live, it will be to the death of you, for all the days that Abram lives, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. This was shown formerly at his birth, and why will you not slay him, so that he will not destroy you in the future?
Nimrod listened to Anuki, and he secretly sent some of his servants to go and seize Abram, and bring him before the king to kill him. Eliezer, Abram's servant whom the king had given him, was at that time in the presence of the king, and he heard what Anuki had advised the king about Abram's death. Eliezer said to Abram,
Quickly, rise up and save your soul, the king wants you dead, because of a dream he had and Anuki interpreted it, and Anuki advised the king concerning you.
Abram listened to Eliezer, and he ran to the house of Noah and Shem, and he hid himself there, and he found safety. The king's servants came to Abram's house, but they couldn't find him, and they searched the country and searched in all directions, but they didn't find him. They returned to the king, but his anger against Abram was stilled, but he drove away from his mind this matter concerning Abram. Abram hid in Noah's house for 1 month, until the king had forgotten this matter, but Abram was still afraid of the king. Terah came to see Abram, his son, secretly in the house of Noah, and Terah was very great in the eyes of the king. Abram asked his father,
Don't you know that the king wants to slay me because of the wicked advice from his counselors? What are you doing here? Arise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, that we may be saved from his hand, otherwise you also perish in latter days. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that Nimrod doesn't give you all this honor through love, but it is only for his benefit that he bestoweth all this good upon you? If he gives you greater good than this, surely these are only vanities of the world, for wealth and riches cannot avail in the day of wrath and anger. Now therefore listen to my voice, and let us arise and go to the land of Canaan, out of the reach of Nimrod. Serve the Most High Ahayah, who created you in the earth, and it will be well with you. And cast away all the vain things which you pursue.
Noah and his son Shem answered Terah, saying, True is the word which Abram had said unto you. Terah listened to his son, and he did all that Abram said, for this was from the Most High Ahayah, that the king should not cause Abram's death. Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son Abram, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. When they came as far as the land of Haran they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. The people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with the Most High and men. The Most High Ahayah his God was with him. Some of the people came and joined Abram. He taught them the instructions of the Most High Ahayah and his ways. These men remained with Abram in his house, and they adhered to him. Abram remained in the land for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years the Most High Ahayah sent an angel and appeared to Abram and said to him,
I am the Most High Ahayah who brought you from Kasdim, and delivered you from the hands of all your enemies. Now, therefore if you will listen to my voice and keep my commandments, my statutes and my laws, then will I cause your enemies to fall before you, and I will multiply your children like the stars of heaven, and I will send my blessing upon all the works of your hands, and you shall lack nothing. Arise now, take your wife and all your belongings and go to the land of Canaan and dwell there. I will be there with you, your God, and I will bless you.
Abram rose and took his wife and all his belongings, and went to the land of Canaan as the Most High Ahayah had told him. Abram came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city. He pitched his tent amongst the children of Canaan. The Most High Ahayah sent an angel and appeared unto Abram when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him,
This is the land which I gave you and to your children after you forever. I will make your children like the stars of heaven, and I will give unto your children for an inheritance all the lands which you sayest.
Abram built an altar in the place where the Most High had spoken to him. He called upon the name of the Most High Ahayah. At that time, at the end of 3 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, in that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of Abram's life. Noah lived 950 years and then died.
A long time ago, Abram lived in Canaan with his wife and all his people. His brother Nahor, his father Terah, and his nephew Lot lived in Haran. In the 5th year of living in Canaan, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah rebelled against King Kedorlaomer of Elam, who had ruled them for 20 years. They didn't want to pay him taxes anymore, so they decided to fight back. In the 10th year of Abram's time in Canaan, Nimrod came with pride and anger to war with Kedorlaomer. A big war broke out. Nimrod, the king of Shinar, gathered his army to fight against King Kedorlaomer. Nimrod was angry because Kedorlaomer had once served him but then rebelled. The two kings prepared for battle in the valley of Babel. Nimrod had 7,000 men, and Kedorlaomer had 5,000 men. They fought fiercely, but Kedorlaomer's army won. Nimrod's army lost 600,000 men, including Nimrod's son, Mardon. Nimrod had to flee back home in shame, and for a long time, he had to obey Kedorlaomer. Kedorlaomer, now even more powerful, made alliances with other kings like Arioch, king of Elasar, and Tidal, king of Goyim. They all agreed to follow his commands. In the 15th year of Abram living in Canaan, when Abram was 70 years old, God sent an angel to visit him. The angel told Abram, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur to give you this land. Walk before me and be perfect. I will give this land to you and your descendants, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. You will live a long, peaceful life, and your descendants will come back here in the 4th generation and inherit this land forever. Abram was very grateful for God's promise. He built an altar, prayed to God, and offered sacrifices to show his thanks. He trusted in God's promise and looked forward to the blessings for his family and descendants. Nimrod was overcome with pride and anger, for it is written, pride was not made for men, nor furious anger for them that are born of a woman, in Ecclesiasticus chapter 10:18. We are in Genesis chapter 12. There was a lot that happened in Abram's life before his name was changed to Abraham and before the destruction Sodom and Gomorrah. We encourage you to read the book of Enoch, Jasher and Jubilees and precept it with Genesis to get a more complete understanding of what our forefathers endured. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Let us seek the Most High Ahayah Ashar Ahayah, and understand his laws, statutes, and commandments, and obey them all the days of our lives.
There was a grievous famine in the land of Canaan, and the people could not stay, so Abram and his people arose and went to Egypt, and when they were at the brook Mitzrayim, they rested from the fatigue of the road. Abram and Sarai were walking, and he beheld his wife, that she was very beautiful. And he said to her, Since Ahayah has created thee with such a beautiful countenance, I am afraid of the Egyptians. They may slay me and take you away. For the fear of Ahayah, our God is not in these places. Say that you're my sister to all that ask, so I may live. Abram commanded the same to all those that came with him to Egypt. Yet Abram did not trust them. But he took Sarai and placed her in a chest and concealed it amongst their vessels. For Abram was greatly concerned about Sarai because of the wickedness of the Egyptians. Abram with the people that were with him came to Egypt, and brought the chest in which Sarai was concealed, and the Egyptians saw the chest. The king's servants approached Abram, saying, What hast thou here in this chest which we have not seen? Now open thou the chest, and give tithe to the king of all that it contains. Abram said, This chest I will not open, but all you demand upon it I will give. And Pharaoh's officers said, It is a chest of precious stones. Give us the 1/10. The king's officers pressed Abram, and they reached the chest and opened it with force. And they saw, and behold, a beautiful woman was in the chest. When the officers saw Sarai, they were struck with admiration at her beauty, and all the princes and servants of Pharaoh assembled to see Sarai, for she was very beautiful. They told Pharaoh about Sarai's beauty, and they praised Sarai to the king. And Pharaoh ordered her to be brought, and she came before the king. Pharaoh saw Sarai, and she pleased him exceedingly, and he was struck with her beauty. And the king rejoiced greatly, and made presents to those who brought him the tidings concerning her. She was then brought to Pharaoh's house, and Abram grieved on account of his wife, and he prayed to the Lord to deliver her from the hands of Pharaoh.
Sarai also prayed at that time and said, O Lord Ahayah, thou didst tell my lord Abram to go from his land and from his father's house to the land of Canaan. And thou didst promise to do well with him if he would perform thy commands. Now behold, we have done that which thou didst command us, and we left our land and our families, and we went to a strange land and to a people whom we have not known before. We came to this land to avoid the famine, and this evil accident has befallen me. Now therefore, O Lord Ahayah, deliver us and save us from the hand of this oppressor, and do well with me for the sake of thy mercy.
The Most High Ahayah hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and the Lord sent an angel to deliver Sarai from the power of Pharaoh. The king came and sat before Sarai, and behold, an angel of the Lord was standing over them. And he appeared to Sarai and said to her, Do not fear, for the Lord has heard thy prayer. The king asked her, Who is the man who came with you? And she said, He is my brother. The king said, It is incumbent upon us to make him great, to elevate him, and to do unto him all the good which thou shalt command us. And at that time the king sent to Abram silver and gold and precious stones in abundance, together with cattle, men servants, and maid servants. And the king ordered Abram to be brought, and he sat in the court of the king's house. And the king greatly exalted Abram on that night. The king approached to speak to Sarai, and he reached out his hand to touch her, when the angel smote him heavily, and he was terrified, and he refrained from reaching her. The angel smote him to the ground, and did this to him the whole night, and the king was terrified. The angel on that night smote heavily all the servants of the king, and his whole household because of Sarai. And there was a great lamentation that night amongst the people of Pharaoh's house. Sarai exemplified unwavering faith in Ahayah, demonstrating profound spiritual and physical beauty. She embodied grace and elegance, serving as a steadfast companion and invaluable support to Abram. Throughout challenges, Sarai remained serene, never contentious or disobedient, always turning to prayer in adversity. Her humility and unwavering loyalty shone brightly, as did her boundless love and unparalleled purity, making her a beacon of virtue in her era. Sarai's life stands as a compelling testament to women of all ages, inspiring them with her devotion, wisdom, and unparalleled goodness.
Abram arose, and he and his people left Egypt. Pharaoh ordered some of his men to stay with him. Abram returned to the land of Canaan, to the place where he had made the altar, where he at first had pitched his tent. Lot the son of Haran, Abram's brother, had a heavy stock of cattle, flocks, herds and tents, for the Lord was bountiful to them because of Abram. The herdsmen of Lot quarreled with the herdsmen of Abram. The land was not big enough for them on account of their cattle. When Abram's herdsmen went to feed their flock, they wouldn't go into other people's fields, but the cattle of Lot's herdsmen did otherwise, they fed them in other people's fields. The people of the land saw this occurrence daily, and they came to Abram and quarreled with him because of Lot's herdsmen. Abram said to Lot, "What are you doing to me, to make me hated by the inhabitants of the land, that you would order your herdsmen to feed your cattle in other people's fields? Don't you know? I am a stranger in this land among the children of Canaan? Why will you do this to me?" Abram quarreled daily with Lot, but Lot wouldn't listen. He continued anyway. The people of Canaan came and told Abram again and again. Abram said to Lot, "How long will you be a stumbling block to me? Now I beseech thee, let there be no more quarreling between us, for we are kinsmen. Go and choose a place where you may dwell with your cattle and all your belongings, and keep thyself at a distance from me, thou and thy household. Don't be afraid to leave me. If anyone harms you, let me know, and I will avenge you." When Abram spoke to Lot, he arose and lifted up his eyes toward the plain of Jordan. He saw that it was flourishing, great for dwelling, and the pasture was lush for cattle. He pitched his tent, dwelt in Sodom, and they were separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and Abram remained in that place many years. In this episode, Abram used the fruits of the Spirit to long suffer with Lot. He also demonstrated goodness, by still reassuring him that he would always be there for him. That is really true brotherly love. The men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Most High exceedingly. The Lord Ahayah said unto Abram, after Lot left, "Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou sayest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee." Then Abram removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord Ahayah. At that time Kedorlaomer king of Elam sent to all the neighboring kings, to Nimrod, king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and to Arioch, king of Elasar, with whom he made a covenant, saying, "Come up to me and assist me, that we may smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. These 4 kings went up with all their camps, about 800,000 men, and they went as they were, and smote every man they found in their road. The 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Shernab king of Admah, Shemeber king of Zeboim, Bera king of Sodom, Bersha king of Gomorrah, and Bela king of Zoar, went out to meet them. And they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. These 9 kings made war in the valley of Siddim, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the kings of Elam. The valley of Siddim was full of lime pits, and the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom, and the kings of Sodom with their camps fled and fell into the lime pits. And all that remained went to the mountain for safety, and the 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom, and they took all that there was in Sodom. They plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom, and they went away. And Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this, and told Abram all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. Abram went with 318 men that night and pursued these kings and smote them, and they all fell before Abram and his men, and there was none remaining but the 4 kings who fled. And they went their separate ways. Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and he also saved Lot with his belongings, his wives, and children, after he and his men passed the valley of Siddim where the kings had made war together. Bera king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him, went out from the lime pits into which they had fallen, to meet Abram and his men. Adonizedek king of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people, with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him a tenth from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was a priest before Ahayah our God. All the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there, with their servants, approached Abram and begged him to return them their servants, and to take unto himself all the property. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As the Most High Ahayah my God who created heaven and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from my enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. The Most High Ahayah my God in whom I trust said unto me, Thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. Now therefore behold, here is all belonging to you, take it, and go. As the Most High Ahayah liveth, I will not take from you from a living soul down to a shoe tie or thread, excepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle. As also the portions of the men who went with me, Aner, Ashkal, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage, they shall take their portion of the spoil. The kings of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take whatever he chose, but he would not. And he sent away the kings of Sodom and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. Lot returned to his home, to Sodom, and Abram and his people returned to their home to the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. The Most High Ahayah again appeared to Abram in Hebron, and he said to him, Do not fear, thy reward is very great before me, for I will not leave thee, until I shall have multiplied thee, and blessed thee, and made thy seed like the stars in heaven, which cannot be measured nor numbered. I will give unto thy seed all these lands that thou sayest with thine eyes, to them will I give them for an inheritance forever. Only be strong and do not fear, walk before me and be perfect. When Abram was 78 years old, Ru died, the son of Peleg. He lived for 239 years, and he died. Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. When she saw that she bare no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram her husband for a wife. Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold, here is my handmaid Hagar, go to her that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived.